Welcome, dear friends. We are here to discuss the experimental and analytical portion of ice plant test rig. In the video on ice plant test rig, we had seen the setup, the actual setup in our lab, wherein the practicals are conducted. In this lecture, I would be explaining you the analytical portion. I would be touching upon the experiment again in brief the procedure, and then we would be concentrating more on the calculation part, observations and calculation part. Ice plant test rig experiment is designed to give you a feel, to give the students a feel about the actual ice factory. In the actual ice factory, you would find that there is a vapor compression refrigeration system generally with a large capacity compressor and a water cooled condenser and a large tank where the cubes or the ice tanks are immersed in the secondary refrigerant. So similar to the actual ice factory, the ice plant test rig in our lab, it has got the four major components, namely the compressor, the condenser, the expansion device, and the evaporator. In the lab, the refrigerant which is used is R134A. In your actual ice factories, you might find refrigerants like ammonia being used. The compressor here is a low capacity compressor because this is a setup. To simulate the actual conditions of the factory, we have a small tank, and in this small tank, there are cubicles similar to what you see with the kulfiwala, and these cubicles would have fresh water in it, and this fresh water would be ultimately converted to ice. You know that fresh water would freeze to ice when the temperatures are taken to negatives. The fresh water would freeze to ice. Okay, and these cubicles are immersed in a tank containing a glycol solution, or in some places brine solution is also used. Both the glycol solution or the brine solution, they do not flow through the compressor, but they help you in the cooling process. Hence, they are called as the secondary refrigerant. The primary refrigerant is the one which participates in the actual cycle. That is, the primary refrigerant would flow through the compressor. It would get compressed up to the condenser pressure. It would be expanded in the expansion device, and then the primary refrigerant would absorb the heat in the evaporator. So that is the primary refrigerant. For performance assessment, the aim of the experiment is performance assessment. For performance assessment of the ice plant, we would be conducting two tests. One is called as a pull down test, and other is called as an ice formation test. So the pull down test, as the name indicates, is basically the test to reduce the temperature of the glycol solution or the brine solution from the ambient temperature up to the negative temperature. So the glycol solution, if it is used as a secondary refrigerant, initially it would be at the ambient temperature, the surrounding temperature. Let us say that surrounding temperature is some value of 23, 24 like this. Okay, and that temperature is brought down to a negative temperature. Let us say minus 8 degrees centigrade, and let us say the temperature initially was some positive temperature. Okay, now why is this done? Why is the pull down test done? The pull down test is done because in the pull down test, we don't actually load the system. Loading means what? Loading means we don't put the ice cans into the tank. So in the pull down test, these cubicles are removed and there is only the brine solution. Okay, and you are simply cooling down the brine. And once this brine or the glycol is brought to a negative temperature, in this case, let us say minus 8 degrees centigrade, then your actual test starts, which is called as ice formation test. Ice formation test. Now, why is two different tests required? Why two tests are required to assess the performance? It is because the pull down test is an unsteady kind of test wherein the parameters are changing rapidly, whereas parameters, I mean unsteady for with respect to the temperature of the glycol. Okay. So you are basically pulling down the temperature of the glycol, and this condition, pulling down condition, would happen only once in a shift or once in a slot. In ice factories, you would actually have the ice factory operating in shifts, and you don't require to pull down the temperature always. Okay, so the most common operational kind of thing in ice plant is the ice formation test. Okay, and that performance is more important. Pull down test is done if you had shut down the ice factory for days together and if the glycol temperature has reached to the ambient. Okay, so the performance of the pull down test would be different from the performance during the ice formation test. Ice formation test would be started when the glycol reaches a negative temperature, let us say -8 degrees centigrade. In the ice formation test, what we would be doing is that we would be loading the fresh water cubicles, the fresh water containers, which are at ambient temperatures. That is, the fresh water is at ambient temperature, some plus, let us say plus 24 degrees centigrade or whatever it is, up to the point where the ice formation happens, and once the ice is formed, you remove the containers, that is called as unloading, and then again you put the fresh containers. Okay, so this is the practice in the ice factory. So the fresh water getting converted to ice is the ice formation test, right? So we would be requiring to take two set of readings, one for the pull down test and other for the ice formation test. So typically we had performed the experiment in the lab and we had taken about 32 kgs of glycol solution. So we had conducted the test. So the observation table we had was like this. We had conducted the test. We noted down the initial time and the final time, the initial time and the final time, and then from this difference, that is final minus initial, we got the duration of the experiment. So this about our experiment lasted for about 1.3 hours, and the mass of the glycol solution which we had taken was about 32 kg. We had measured that glycol solution and we had put that glycol solution in this tank. Okay, so the tank, this tank mass was about the water glycol solution mass was about 32 kgs, and finally we got the temperature from ambient up to the, from the ambient we got the final temperature to -8 degree centigrade. Okay, -8 degree centigrade. So this was the temperature final, -8 degree centigrade, and then during this test we noted the suction pressure and the discharge pressure. What is the suction pressure? Suction pressure is the pressure which is indicated by the pressure gauge connected to the evaporator, and the discharge pressure is the pressure which is the condenser pressure showed by the condenser connected to the showed by the pressure gauge connected to the condenser. So our readings gave us the values of 1 kg per centimeter square, and this was about 8 kgs per centimeter square. Okay, so the condenser was at 8 kgs per centimeter square and the evaporator was at 1 kg per centimeter square. And then we also took the energy meter reading. So this suction pressure and discharge pressure readings would help us to use the pressure enthalpy chart for R134A and calculate the enthalpies. The energy meter reading, the energy meter, why is the energy meter used? So in the experiment, let me just note down, in the pull down test as well as ice formation test, we would be using two methods to arrive at the performance. One is the experimental method where we'll be we measure the power consumption of the compressor by taking the energy meter reading. Energy meter reading. So energy meter reading can be straight away read and we can get the difference. and then from that energy meter readings we can calculate the power by dividing this energy meter reading difference with upon time. Okay, time in hours. So the energy meter readings would be, let us say, kilowatt hour 2 minus kilowatt hour 1 upon R would cancel, and what you will get is the measurement of power, which is kilowatts. And the refrigerating capacity or refrigerating effect reading experimentally is taken as mass of the brine or glycol, whatever is used, specific heat of the glycol, and the final temperature of the glycol minus the initial temperature of the glycol upon the time duration. Okay, so this set of readings we will be using for calculating the power consumption and refrigerating effect. And COP experimental is the refrigerating effect upon the power consumption. Okay, so we need to measure the mass of glycol, and I told you that we had taken about 32 kgs of glycol. Then we need to know the specific heat of the glycol solution. That would also be known, or you can refer to the literature for that. So I will take that value as 3.82 kilojoules per kg Kelvin, and we would be using the refrigerating effect and the initial temperature. Let us say we had actually started with 4 degrees centigrade, and we had reached about -8 degrees centigrade. Okay, so the temperature drop in our case when we perform this experiment, that is from final to initial to final, that we got as about 12 degrees centigrade. Okay, 12 degree centigrade. This delta T, this minus this whole thing we got as 12 degrees centigrade, and the time of our experiment was 1.33 hours, or about, to be precise, about 93 minutes. Right. So our observation table would look like this. What was the initial temperature of the glycol solution? What was the final temperature of the glycol solution? Then what was the mass of the glycol solution taken, and what was the time duration? Then we would require the energy meter reading initial, energy meter reading final, and the time duration. So time duration is 93 minutes or 1.33 hours, and that gave us the capacity, and you can convert this minutes to seconds, and then we would get some calculations if you do. My calculations showed that the refrigerating effect was about 0.087 kilowatt. 0.087 kilowatts. Why did I get kilowatts? Because I had converted this time to seconds. This is kilojoules per kg Kelvin, this is kgs, and this is degrees Celsius. So that would cancel, and we'll be left with the answer in kilojoules per second or kilowatts. And the compressor work, that is kWh2 minus kWh1, we had read the readings which we got was, the final reading was 105.8 kWh. The least count of the experiment is of the energy meter is 0.1 kilowatt hour. So we had got 105.8, and this was about 105. So that gave us some readings, and upon time was in hours. So if you took that time as 1.32, so we got the compressor reading, and then we converted it into kilowatts. And then if you substitute it, we got the COP as 0.502. Okay, so if you want to determine the performance of the ice plant experimentally during the pull down test, as I said, your observation table would look like the energy meter reading initial, energy meter reading final, then the temperature of the glycol initial, temperature of the glycol final. Then you would require to note down the time of the experiment, and then you need to measure the mass of the glycol, which was already put in the ice tank, and that readings are enough for us to arrive at the capacity, which is MCP delta T upon time, and the power consumption, which is the difference in the energy meter upon time, and hence this coefficient of performance, which is the ratio of refrigerating effect to the power consumption. So this is the calculation for pull down test performance by the experimental method. We can use analytical method also to calculate the performance by using the pressure enthalpy diagram of R134A and because the refrigerant used is R134A, so we need to use R134A pH chart. If the ammonia was used as a refrigerant, we would have used the pH chart of ammonia. Now, how do you get that? So for that, you need to read the enthalpies and plot the actual points. So for plotting the actual points, you need to note down the temperature readings at the state 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. So let me draw the pressure enthalpy diagram. Pressure enthalpy diagram for this. 1 is the suction to the compressor. 2 is the discharge from the compressor. Then you would have slight subcooling. So 3 is the discharge of the condenser or suction to the expansion device. And 4, if you draw vertical, this 4 is the entry to the evaporator. Now one can note down the suction pressure and discharge pressure, and I had already given you that readings. Suction pressure, that is evaporator pressure in absolute, would be the gauge pressure reading plus the atmospheric pressure. Okay, so that we can use, and accordingly one can get the suction pressure here and the discharge pressure here. The condenser pressure, again absolute, would be the gauge pressure of the condenser. This is of the evaporator, this is of the condenser, plus 1.013. You need to express the condenser pressure and evaporator pressure in bars. Okay, in bars. So that reading which we had was 1 kg. This was 1 kg per centimeter square, which is 1 kg per centimeter square is 0.981 bar. And this was 8 kg per centimeter square, so this is about 7.84 bar. Okay, so we use this pressures to read to plot the pressure lines. This is the condenser pressure line and this is the evaporator pressure line. We plot it on the pressure enthalpy diagram. Now in order to look at this point 1, 2 and 3 and 4, we need to have the temperature readings. So the pressure readings would be in your observation table, and those observations can be obtained from the pressure gauges. And the temperature readings, you would need thermocouples on the setup. Okay, so the setup, as I had shown you earlier, you would require some thermocouples here. Okay, to note down the temperature. Let us say this is 1, this is 2, so this would be T2, this would be T1 by using a thermocouple. This would be T3 by using a thermocouple, whatever. You can name, nomenclature is not important. You can call anything as 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever you like. Okay, and then we can note down the temperatures. And this temperatures would help us to arrive at the points. Okay, for example, this temperature reading which we had taken here was -9 degrees centigrade. So with this help of this T1, we can plot the point H1, because this T1 is known to be -9 degrees centigrade. So from the pressure enthalpy diagram, and by drawing a horizontal and locating a -9 degrees centigrade line, I can locate the point 1. Okay. Similarly, one can locate the point 2, 3 and 4. We need to know the temperature at the exit of the condenser. So this temperature, if I know, then I can locate the point 3. Okay, so these values we have from the calculation, from the observation tables. Let me give you those values. This is -9, and then our observations showed that this was the discharge temperature was 69 degrees centigrade. Okay, this temperature T3 was about some 29 or some 29 degrees centigrade, like this, and then this is simply an isenthalpic process like this. Okay, so these readings we can use for calculating the enthalpy. So H1 would be H superheated from the pH chart, and this values I have with me is 604 kilojoules per kg Then H2, I have got the value as 644 using the pressure enthalpy diagram, and H3, which is equal to H4, would be 450. Was 450. So using this now, these readings, we can calculate the COP as well as capacity. Now, how do you find the COP? COP is pretty simple. COP is the delta H across the evaporator upon delta H across the compressor. Okay, so that gives us very interesting values. So this is 604 minus 450 upon this is 644 minus 604. So this is, if you solve this, you'll get the coefficient of performance as 3.85. Okay, this is 3.85. Refrigerating effect, how do you find? So refrigerating effect, I told you, you find it by MCP delta T, right? One can also take the mass flow rate. Here there is a flow meter, as was shown in the video, that there is a flow meter. This flow meter would record the volume flow rate at 3, capital V3, and this capital V3, and from the steam table, if you get the specific volume at 3, you can read out the mass flow rate of the refrigerant. Okay, so mass flow rate of the refrigerant into H1 minus H4 is another way of finding the refrigerating effect, total refrigerating effect, and mass flow rate MR into H2 minus H1 would give you the actual power consumption. Okay, so specific power consumption is per kg of the refrigerant, and actual power consumption is MR into specific power consumption. Similarly, specific refrigerating effect is delta H across the evaporator, and it would be in kilojoules per kg of the refrigerant. And if you want to find the total refrigerating effect or total refrigerating capacity of the machine, you need to do you need to multiply m dot R into enthalpy difference across the evaporator. So this is how you calculate the things for your pull down test. Now, in your ice formation test, how are the calculations done? So in the ice formation test, what is to be understood clearly is how do you find the refrigerating effect experimentally. Okay, so experimentally, how do you find the refrigerating effect? So for that, we need to understand that what we are calculating is how much is and at what rate, how much and at what rate, and at what rate are we removing the heat from water and converting it to ice, So how is that calculated? So we have studied in physics that this water, which is at some ambient temperature, that water is ultimately brought to -4 degrees centigrade, okay, which was the final temperature of the ice in our experiment. Okay, so what we need to know is we need to know the mass of the water taken, then the specific heat of the water, and then we need to know the final we need to know the initial temperature of the water, minus 0 degrees centigrade, because the ice is formed at 0 degrees centigrade. Okay, so that will give us the sensible cooling. Sensible cooling means the cooling which is required to bring the temperature of the water from ambient temperature to 0 degrees centigrade. Plus, now what happens to that water which is at 0 degrees centigrade? That water is converted to ice. So we need to know the latent heat of fusion of ice. So this is latent heat of fusion of ice. So this is from 0 to 0 degrees centigrade to 0 degrees centigrade. And then finally, we need to know the mass of ice formed, Cp of ice formed, and then the final temperature of ice minus 0 degrees centigrade. Okay, minus 0 degrees centigrade. So this is how we calculate the refrigerating effect during the ice formation test experimentally. So what observations we would require? And upon time, obviously, the whole thing upon time. this whole thing, because this is the refrigerating effect, and if you want to find the refrigerating effect in rate, then whole thing has to be divided by time. Okay, so the readings which we have, and to give you a feel of the calculations, I will just write down the readings which we have. So we had taken 2 kgs of ice in the cubicle. So your sensible cooling was of water was m Cp delta T, as I said, plus m into latent heat plus m, this was water, this was water, this was ice, this is water and ice, which is same, and Cp of ice into delta T. Okay, so this water we had taken 2, the Cp of water, you know, it is 4.187 into delta T is, we had got a temperature, the water temperature initially was 22, and then finally because it became ice, it becomes 0. So 22 degrees centigrade was the ambient temperature of the water temperature, plus because you have taken 2 as the water mass, and the latent heat of ice, you know, is 335 kilojoules per kg. Specific heat of water, you know, is 4.187 kilojoules per kg Kelvin, plus mass of ice formed was 2, and that ice was now at the specific heat of ice is 2.1. This is specific heat of ice into that water ultimately went from 0 to -4 degrees centigrade. So this is +4. So this, if you solve, you'll get some very interesting calculations. So this value I had calculated as about 184 point something kilojoules. This is 670 kilojoules, and this value comes to me as 17.6 kilojoules. Okay, so the addition of this, if you add do the addition, it comes about 871 or 872 kilojoules, and then we need to divide it by time. Okay, we need to divide it by time, right? There is also something called a stirrer work over here, where the stirrer motor is used, and one can estimate that in our calculations. Okay, so I will be neglecting the stirrer work calculations, and what I will be doing is that I will be simply using this to divide it by time. Okay, divided by time upon the time of the experiment. Similarly, the compressor work, we would be calculating again. Compressor work during the ice formation test, you calculate kWh final minus kWh1, that is initial, that is the energy meter reading final minus energy meter reading initial upon time. Okay, upon time. So this way one can calculate the compressor work, and let me give you the values directly. That the COP I had got from this. This is the refrigerating effect. You can do the calculations and confirm yourself. Okay, I had got the value as 4.4972. Okay, so if I do the refrigerating effect upon power consumption, I get the value as 0.49, so this is the COP which is for ice formation test determined experimentally. Similar to what I had explained you for the pull down test, your analytical calculations are also be done, and for analytical calculations again we need to plot this cycle on a pressure enthalpy diagram, and similar to what you would have some the value of H1, H2, H3 and H4, and that would give you the specific enthalpies we would be using to calculate the specific refrigerating effect, and we would be using to calculate the specific compressor work, and the COP would be the ratio of delta H across the evaporator upon delta H across the compressor. So this is very interesting calculation. Last point would be somebody would ask you what is the capacity of the plant, and commercial people would ask you that forget about the coefficient of performance, but we are interested in knowing how much is the capacity of the plant. Now capacity of the plant, when you are talking in commercial terms, so capacity of the ice plant is expressed in how much tons of ice, how many tons of ice that ice plant can give us, okay, can be manufactured or produced every day per day. Okay, so this was the setup which I had shown you and explained you in the video lecture. There we had seen that that setup is a very small setup and the capacity is extremely small. But how do you do the calculations of the capacity? So if I want to do the capacity calculation, that is how much is the ice formed per day capacity of plant, which is to be expressed in the ice formed per day, then this is a very interesting calculation. What we will have to do is that we need to know the quantity of the water taken. Now this quantity of the water which was taken was 2 kgs. This was 2 kgs, and over a 24-hour cycle, 24-hour cycle, upon the time period required for forming this 2 kgs ice too. So for taking 2 kgs, we had required 1.32 hours. Okay. So for 2 kgs, you require 1.32 hours. So if you operate, if you also, or in other words, if you had used if you take 2 kg as a load, the ice formation had taken 1.32 hours. So if you had operated the plant for 24 hours, then what would be the ice formation? So that calculations is pretty simple, and that would be, if you do the calculation, it would be 36 kgs per day. 36 kgs per day, which is obviously nothing, but for our lab purpose, this is good enough. Okay. So this explains the calculations of the ice plant setup, which is very interesting, and we need to write down these calculations in the form of result table, and then based on the result table we need to conclude, like for example, what is the capacity of the plant we find, whether the coefficient of performance what we get is desirable or not, what is the benchmark performance of the ice factory, what is the COP which we are getting, why do we get a different COP analytically, and why do we get a different COP when we do experimentally. So we need to reason out this, and all this reasoning we need to write is a conclusion. Okay, so thank you very much. Bye for now.